Marcus Johnson always kept his work life private. Growing up in a small town where people judged each other by their jobs, he learned early that first impressions were hard to change. Now, at 32 years old, he had built a life he was proud of, even if others couldn't see its true value. Marcus lived in a modest apartment on the east side of the city. Every morning, he woke up at 4:30 a.m., much earlier than most people. He would brew a strong cup of coffee, eat a simple breakfast of oatmeal, and head out while the streets were still dark and quiet. His neighbors often saw him leaving in his dark green uniform and assumed he was just another city worker. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson," called Mrs. Wilson, his elderly neighbor who was always up early tending to her small garden. "Another day collecting the trash." Marcus smiled and waved. "Yes, Mom. Someone's got to do it." This was his standard reply. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. For the past 8 years, Marcus had worked for the city's waste management department. He started as a garbage collector, riding on the back of trucks and lifting heavy bins. The work was hard, but Marcus saw things others didn't. He noticed patterns in what businesses threw away, which neighborhoods recycled properly, and where the system was failing. While others complained about the smell and the early hours, Marcus was watching, learning, and planning. One evening after a long shift, Marcus sat at his kitchen table surrounded by notebooks filled with drawings, numbers, and ideas. His phone rang. It was Amara, his fiancée. "Hey babe, how was work?" she asked. "Same as always," Marcus replied. "How was your day at the hospital?" Amara worked as a nurse at the city's best hospital. They had met 2 years ago, when Marcus came in with a minor injury from work. While their jobs were very different, Amara loved Marcus's quiet confidence and kind heart. She never once looked down on his job, unlike many others. "My parents want to have dinner next week," Amara said carefully. "They want both our families to meet before the wedding." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. In 3 weeks, he and Amara would be married. He had met her parents before, but only briefly. Her father was Dr. Reynolds, a famous surgeon who saved lives and received awards. Her mother ran a successful art gallery downtown. Her brother was in law school, and her sister was studying to be an engineer. "They'll be asking about your job, you know," Amara said softly. "Maybe it's time to tell them the truth." Marcus sighed. "Let them think what they want for now. I'm not ashamed of my work." "I know you're not, and you shouldn't be," Amara said. "But I hate seeing that look on people's faces when they think you're just a garbage man. You're so much more than that." After they hung up, Marcus walked to his small home office. Unlike the rest of his simple apartment, this room was filled with advanced computer equipment, charts on the walls, and books about data science, environmental management, and urban planning. On his desk sat an envelope with the city seal. Inside was a letter he had received yesterday, a promotion and funding approval that would change everything. But Marcus wasn't ready to share this news yet, not even with Amara. The dinner with both families was set for Friday night at Amara's parents' large home in the wealthy part of town. Marcus knew what was coming. The polite but disappointed looks, the questions about his career goals, as if what he did now couldn't possibly be enough. He had faced this judgment all his life. What none of them knew was that Marcus Johnson had been quietly building something extraordinary all these years, and soon they would all see exactly who he really was. Friday night arrived faster than Marcus wanted. He stood outside Dr. Reynolds' large 2-story house, straightening his tie and taking deep breaths. His parents waited beside him, looking just as nervous. His father, a retired bus driver, kept checking his watch. His mother, who had worked as a school cafeteria cook all her life, smoothed her best dress repeatedly. "You look fine, Mom," Marcus said gently. "Both of you do." "I just want to make a good impression," his mother replied. "These are important people." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You're important people, too." Before they could ring the bell, the door swung open. Amara rushed out, beautiful in a simple blue dress, and hugged Marcus tightly. "I missed you," she whispered in his ear. Then she greeted his parents warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I'm so happy you're here. Please come in." The inside of the house was exactly what Marcus expected. High ceilings, expensive furniture, and artwork that probably cost more than his yearly salary. Family photos showed the Reynolds family in front of famous landmarks around the world. Marcus noticed his parents looking around with wide eyes. Dr. Reynolds approached with a glass of wine in his hand. He was tall with gray hair at his temples, wearing clothes that screamed money without trying. "Marcus," he said, shaking his hand firmly, "good to see you again. And these must be your parents." After awkward introductions, they moved to the dining room. The large table was set with fine china and multiple forks that made Marcus's father look confused. Amara's mother, Mrs. Reynolds, directed everyone to their seats. "So, Marcus," Mrs. Reynolds said once everyone had food on their plates, "Amara tells us you work for the city." Marcus nodded. "Yes, in waste management." "Oh," she said, her smile stiffening slightly. "That's important work." Marcus's mother jumped in. "Marcus has always been such a hard worker. He never misses a day, even in bad weather." Dr. Reynolds nodded politely. Reliability is important in any job. Amara's younger brother, James, who was home from law school, asked, "How early do you have to start?" "I imagine garbage routes begin pretty early." "I'm up by 4:30, Marcus answered simply. "That sounds rough," James said, looking genuinely impressed. "I can barely make my 9 a.m. classes." The conversation moved on to safer topics, but Marcus noticed how Amara's family kept steering it toward future plans and ambitions. Dr. Reynolds talked about a medical conference he'd attended in Paris. Mrs. Reynolds mentioned the new wing of her art gallery. Amara's sister Emma talked about her engineering internship. "And what about you, Marcus?" Dr. Reynolds asked during dessert. "Any plans beyond your current position? Perhaps management?" Before Marcus could answer, Amara's cousin Blake, who had been drinking steadily all evening, laughed loudly. "Come on, Uncle Robert," Blake said, refilling his wine glass. "What kind of management are we talking about here?" "Garbage truck supervisor." The table fell silent. Marcus felt his face grow hot, but kept his expression calm. His father stared down at his plate. "Blake," Amara snapped, "that's completely inappropriate." "What?" Blake shrugged. "I'm just saying there's not exactly a career ladder when your job is picking up trash. No offense, man." "Blake, that's enough," Dr. Reynolds said firmly, looking embarrassed. Marcus looked around the table. Some faces showed shock at Blake's rudeness. Others held pity. A few showed what looked like agreement with Blake's assessment, though they were too polite to say it. Amara reached for Marcus's hand under the table and squeezed it tightly. "Actually," Marcus said quietly, "I do have some news about my work." Everyone looked at him with curiosity. "I'd like to show all of you what I really do," Marcus continued. "Would everyone be free tomorrow afternoon? I can give you a tour of my workplace." Dr. Reynolds looked surprised but nodded. "I suppose we could make time." As they left later that night, Marcus kissed Amara goodbye. "Are you sure about tomorrow?" she asked worriedly. Marcus smiled. "Yes, it's time they knew the truth." The next day at noon, both families gathered downtown as Marcus had asked. The sun was bright, making the tall glass buildings shine. Marcus stood waiting for them on a corner, dressed differently than they had ever seen him. Instead of his usual clothes or work uniform, he wore a crisp white shirt, dark blue tie, and neat pants. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus said when everyone arrived. His parents looked confused but proud. Amara stood close to him, smiling with excitement. The Reynolds family seemed politely curious, except for Blake, who looked bored and hungover. "So, where are we going?" Dr. Reynolds asked, checking his expensive watch. "I have a surgery scheduled later today." "It's not far," Marcus assured him. They walked 2 blocks to a large, modern building with dark glass windows. The sign out front read, City Environmental Management and Data Center. Marcus led them toward the main entrance. I thought you worked at the waste collection facility across town, Mrs. Reynolds said, looking confused. I started there, Marcus replied, but not anymore. When they reached the entrance, Marcus pulled out a special ID card and swiped it at the security panel. The doors opened smoothly. Inside, a security guard at the front desk smiled widely when he saw Marcus. Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson, the guard said respectfully. Hi, Tom. Marcus nodded. These are my guests for the tour I mentioned. Of course, sir. They're all cleared to go up. Dr. Reynolds and his wife exchanged puzzled looks. Blake's mouth fell open slightly. Even Marcus's parents seemed surprised by the respectful way the guard treated their son. Marcus led them to an elevator and used his card again to access it. Once inside, he pressed the button for the top floor. Marcus, his father asked quietly, what is this place? You'll see soon, Dad, Marcus answered with a small smile. The elevator doors opened to reveal a busy office floor. People worked at computers, talked in small groups, and moved between different rooms with purpose. Large screens on the walls showed maps of the city with colored areas and changing numbers. A young woman approached them immediately. Mr. Johnson, your presentation room is ready. Would you like coffee served for your guests? Yes, please, Sophia. Thank you. As Marcus led them through the office, several employees greeted him by name. Some stopped to shake his hand or ask quick questions about projects. No one treated him like a garbage collector. Instead, they acted like he was someone important. Finally, they reached a large glass-walled conference room with a view of the entire city. Inside were comfortable chairs around a polished table and a large screen on one wall. Please, everyone sit down, Marcus said, his voice calm but stronger than they had heard before. Once they were seated, Marcus stood at the head of the table. Blake was staring at him with wide eyes. Dr. Reynolds looked completely confused. Amara was beaming with pride. I owe all of you an explanation, Marcus began. It's true that 8 years ago, I started as a garbage collector for the city. I woke up at 4:30 every morning and rode on the back of trucks. It was honest work, and I was never ashamed of it. He paused, looking each person in the eye before continuing. But what none of you knew is what I was doing while collecting trash. I was watching, learning, seeing patterns that no one else noticed. Marcus pressed a button on a small remote. The large screen lit up with complex charts, maps, and data. 3 years into the job, I created something that changed everything, he said. Everyone leaned forward, curiosity now playing on their faces. Even Blake looked interested. What did you create? Dr. Reynolds asked quietly. Before Marcus could answer, the door opened. A tall man in an expensive suit walked in, followed by several others in formal business attire. Sorry to interrupt, Marcus, the man said, but the mayor just arrived for the briefing, and he's eager to see your new project. The room fell silent as Mayor Wilson walked in. He was a well-known figure in the city, always on TV talking about new projects. Everyone recognized him immediately. Dr. Reynolds stood up straight, clearly surprised to be in the same room as the mayor. Mr. Mayor, these are my family members, Marcus said calmly. I was just explaining my work to them. Excellent timing then, Mayor Wilson said, shaking hands with everyone. Marcus here is one of our city's greatest assets. I'm sure you're all very proud. Marcus's parents nodded, though they looked as confused as everyone else. Blake's mouth hung open in shock. Amara smiled, watching everyone's reactions with obvious enjoyment. Please continue, Marcus, the mayor said, taking the seat. I'm interested in hearing how you explain your work to your family. Marcus nodded and turned back to the screen. As I was saying, 3 years into my job as a garbage collector, I noticed something no one else had. Our city was wasting millions of dollars on inefficient routes. Trucks were going to half-empty dumpsters while others were overflowing. He pressed a button, and the screen showed a map of the city with colored lines running through it. I spent my nights learning computer programming. Then I built a system that could predict which areas would have the most trash on which days. I showed it to my supervisor, who showed it to his boss. Marcus clicked to the next slide, which showed charts with numbers going up. Using my system, the city saved over $2 million in the first year just in fuel costs. Trucks stopped going to empty dumpsters. Workers saved time. The system worked so well that the city created a new department, Environmental Data Management. They asked me to lead it. Dr. Reynolds leaned forward. "You're saying you run this entire department?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "I have a team of 25 people now. Computer experts, environmental scientists, and former trash collectors like me who understand the real-world side of the job." Blake, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "But you still get up at 4:30 in the morning." Marcus nodded. "Old habits. I use the early hours to work on new ideas before meetings start." Mayor Wilson stood up and pointed to the screen. "Marcus's system has now saved our city over $15 million in 3 years. But more importantly, it's helped us reduce pollution by 30%. Mrs. Reynolds looked at Marcus with new eyes. "Why didn't you tell us any of this?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because the work matters more than the title. I wanted to be sure Amara was marrying me for who I am, not what people think of my job." Amara squeezed his hand. "I've known about Marcus's work for a year now. He asked me not to tell anyone until he was ready." Marcus's father spoke up, his voice full of emotion. "Son, you could have told us." "I know, Dad," Marcus said. "But I learned something as a garbage collector. People throw away things they think have no value without looking closer. I wanted everyone to see past the uniform first." The mayor checked his watch. "Marcus, we should start the briefing soon." "Of course," Marcus replied. "But first, I'd like to show my families my latest project." He turned to the group. "If you'll follow me, there's something important I want you to see." As they walked through the office again, Dr. Reynolds moved beside Marcus. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I made assumptions based on very little information." "No apology needed," Marcus replied. "But there's more to show you." He led them to another room with an even larger screen showing a 3D model of the city. Engineers and scientists worked at computers around the room. Everyone looked up when Marcus entered. "Team, these are my families," Marcus announced. "I'd like to show them Project Greenlife." A young scientist quickly stood up. "It's ready for presentation, Mr. Johnson. We just finished the final calculations this morning." Marcus turned to his guests, his eyes bright with excitement. "This is what I've been working on for the past 2 years, and it's going to change everything." The large screen in the room lit up with a colorful map of the city. Everyone could see different neighborhoods marked in various colors: red, yellow, and green. Marcus stood in front of the screen, looking more confident than his families had ever seen him. "This is Project Greenlife," Marcus explained, pointing to the map. "The colors show which areas of our city have good trash services and which don't." Dr. Reynolds studied the map. "The red areas have poor service." "Exactly," Marcus nodded. "And if you look closely, you'll notice something important." Everyone leaned forward. Mrs. Reynolds gasped softly. "The red areas are all in poorer neighborhoods." "Yes," Marcus said. "The people who live in these red areas have fewer trash pickups, fewer recycling options, and more illegal dumping. This creates health problems and makes these neighborhoods less safe." Marcus clicked a button, and the map changed to show another view. "These same neighborhoods have higher rates of asthma, especially in children," he continued. "They also have more rats and bugs because of the trash problems." Blake, who had been unusually quiet, raised his hand like a student. "But why haven't these issues been fixed before?" Marcus gave him a small smile. "Good question. Partly because no one was looking at the data this way, and partly because people in these neighborhoods don't have the power to demand better services." Marcus's mother wiped a tear from her eye. We lived in one of those red areas when Marcus was growing up. The trash would pile up for days. Marcus got sick a lot as a child. The room went quiet as everyone took in this information. Amara moved closer to Marcus and held his hand. "This is why you became a garbage collector, isn't it?" she asked softly. Marcus nodded. "I wanted to help fix the system from the inside." Mayor Wilson stepped forward. "Which brings us to why I'm here today. The City Council is voting tomorrow on funding for Project Greenlife. Marcus has designed a completely new system that will give all neighborhoods equal waste management services." The mayor turned to the screen as Marcus pulled up new images. "This plan will add new routes, hire more workers, and place recycling centers in every neighborhood," Marcus explained. "It will create over 300 new jobs and improve the health of thousands of people." Dr. Reynolds looked impressed. "What's the cost?" $12 million, the mayor answered. Blake whistled. "That's a lot of money." "It is," Marcus agreed. "But my team has calculated that the city will save $20 million in healthcare costs over 5 years if we reduce the pollution in these areas. We'll also bring in about $8 million in recycling revenue." One of the scientists added, "Plus, the federal government has offered to match our funding if we can prove the system works." Marcus clicked to a final slide. "But the most important part isn't the money. It's that every child deserves to grow up in a clean neighborhood, no matter where they live or how much money their parents have." Dr. Reynolds stood up suddenly. "Marcus, this is extraordinary work, truly important." Mrs. Reynolds nodded in agreement. "I had no idea waste management could have such an impact on public health." Marcus's father looked at his son with tears in his eyes. "You did it, son. You really did it." Mayor Wilson checked his watch again. "I hate to interrupt this moment, but the press is waiting. Marcus, are you ready to make the announcement?" Marcus looked surprised. "Today. I thought we were waiting until after the vote." "The council decided this morning," the mayor said with a smile. "Project Greenlife is approved. Full funding. They want you to tell the city about it yourself." Everyone in the room broke into applause. Marcus stood speechless for a moment. "This means your project will actually happen?" Blake asked, now looking genuinely interested. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's really happening." Amara hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you." As they prepared to leave for the press conference, Dr. Reynolds pulled Marcus aside. "I need to ask you something important," he said quietly. Marcus looked at Dr. Reynolds, wondering what he wanted to ask. They stood in a quiet corner while everyone else prepared to go to the press conference. "What is it, sir?" Marcus asked. Dr. Reynolds looked uncomfortable. "First, I want to apologize properly. I judged you unfairly. I saw only what I expected to see, a man with a job I didn't understand or value." "It's okay," Marcus said. "Most people do the same." "No, it's not okay," Dr. Reynolds insisted. "I'm a doctor. I should know better than to make quick judgments. I see now that your work saves more lives than I ever could with my surgeries." Marcus was surprised by this admission. "That's very kind, but—" "Let me finish," Dr. Reynolds said. "My question is this. Would you consider letting me invest in Project Greenlife? I have connections with the hospital board. We could study the health improvements in these neighborhoods. It could help other cities copy your program." Before Marcus could answer, Mayor Wilson called them over. "Time to go, Marcus. The press is waiting." The group walked together through the building and into a large room where reporters and cameras were set up. Marcus's parents looked nervous but proud. Blake kept shaking his head in amazement. Amara held Marcus's hand tightly. As they entered, people started taking pictures. Reporters called out questions. Marcus had never been the center of so much attention before. He took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphones. "Good afternoon," he began. "My name is Marcus Johnson. I'm the Director of Environmental Data Management for our city. Today, I'm happy to announce that Project Greenlife has been approved. As Marcus explained the project to the reporters, his families watched from the side. Mrs. Reynolds leaned over to Marcus's mother. "Your son is remarkable," she said. "You must be so proud." Marcus's mother smiled. "We always knew he was special, but we never imagined all this." A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Johnson, how did you go from being a garbage collector to creating this program?" Marcus smiled. "I never stopped being a garbage collector at heart. That's what makes this work. I saw problems that people who never did the actual job couldn't see." Another reporter asked, "Is it true you turned down jobs from private companies that would have paid you much more?" "Yes," Marcus answered simply. "This isn't about money. It's about making our city better for everyone." After the press conference, a group of children from one of the red zone neighborhoods came forward with flowers for Marcus. They had been invited specially by the mayor. "Mr. Johnson," one little girl said shyly, "my brother has asthma real bad. My mom says your project will help him breathe better. Is that true?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "Yes, it is. That's exactly why we're doing this work." The girl hugged him, and photographers captured the moment. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Later, as they were leaving the building, Blake approached Marcus awkwardly. "I owe you a big apology," he said, looking genuinely sorry. "I was a jerk at dinner. I said things that were wrong. And, well, stupid." Marcus shook his hand. "It's forgotten." "No, seriously," Blake insisted. "I've been trying to find a job for months after college. Nothing meaningful. I just chase money. But you found a way to make real change." Marcus considered this. "We actually need people in community outreach for Green Life. People who can explain the program to neighborhoods. If you're interested." Blake's eyes widened. "Are you offering me a job? After how I treated you?" "I'm offering you a chance to do something that matters," Marcus replied. "Just like someone gave me a chance once." As they walked outside, reporters were still taking pictures. One called out, "Mr. Johnson, what's next for you after Project Green Life?" Before Marcus could answer, Dr. Reynolds stepped forward and put his arm around Marcus's shoulders. "Next," Dr. Reynolds announced proudly, "he's becoming my son-in-law." The families laughed together as they walked away from the building. But Marcus was quiet, thinking about something. "Everything okay?" Amara asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "I'm just wondering if it's time to show them the other project too." "The big one?" Amara asked, looking surprised. "Are you sure they're ready for that?" The next morning, Marcus invited both families to meet him at a different building on the other side of town. This area wasn't as nice as downtown. The streets were dirtier, and many buildings looked old and broken. "Why are we here?" Blake asked, looking around nervously at the neighborhood. "This is where it all started," Marcus explained. "This is the neighborhood I grew up in." They followed Marcus to a small, plain building with a sign that read Community Innovation Center. Inside, they were surprised to see a clean, modern space filled with computers, workstations, and young people busy working. "Welcome to my other project," Marcus said with a smile. A teenage girl ran up to Marcus and gave him a high five. "Mr. J, did you tell them about our win yet?" "Not yet, Tasha," Marcus laughed. "Everyone, this is Tasha. She's one of our star students." Tasha grinned proudly. "We won the city science competition yesterday. Our trash-sorting robot beat all the fancy private schools." Dr. Reynolds looked around the room. "What is this place exactly?" 3 years ago, I used my own money to start this center," Marcus explained. "We teach kids from the neighborhood about computers, science, and environmental work." Marcus led them through the busy room. Children of all ages were working on projects, coding on computers, or building things with recycled materials. "Every child here has potential," Marcus said. "But many schools in this area don't have good science programs or computers. So we created this place for after school and weekends." Mrs. Reynolds watched a group of children building a small robot. "They're so young, but doing such complex work. Kids are smart, Marcus said. They just need the right tools and someone who believes in them. Marcus's mother touched her son's arm. You never told us about this place either. I wanted to make sure it worked first, Marcus explained. Now we have 60 regular students. 5 of our older students have received college scholarships for engineering. Blake looked genuinely impressed. This is amazing. How do you have time to run this and your city job? I don't run it alone, Marcus said. Our first students are now teachers here too. As if on cue, a young man in his early 20s approached the group. Mr. Johnson, the reporters are here about the competition win. Thanks, Dion, Marcus said. Everyone, this is Dion. He was one of our first students. Now he's studying environmental engineering in college and works here part-time. Marcus believed in me when nobody else did, Dion said simply. Now I do the same for these kids. Dr. Reynolds shook his head in amazement. So this is the big project you mentioned yesterday. Marcus and Amara exchanged a smile. Actually, no, Marcus said. There's one more thing I want to show you. He led them to a back room where a large table held what looked like a model of the city, but this model had tiny moving parts and lights. This is what I've been working on at night, Marcus explained. It's a completely new waste system for the city. It uses underground pipes and automatic sorting. He pressed a button, and the model came to life. Tiny lights showed how trash would move through the city without trucks. If this works, Marcus continued, it will cut pollution by 90% and create a whole new type of job, environmental tech workers. The kids from this center would be perfectly trained for those jobs. Everyone stared at the complex model in amazement. This is revolutionary, Dr. Reynolds said quietly. It's also very expensive, Marcus admitted, much more than Project Green Life. I've been saving for years, but it's not enough. Dr. Reynolds looked at the model, then at the room full of children working on their projects. He turned to Marcus with a serious expression. I think it's time we talked about a real partnership, he said, not just as family, but as investors in the future. My hospital group has a large innovation fund. This is exactly the kind of project they look for. Marcus looked surprised. You would help with this? Help? Dr. Reynolds smiled. Marcus, I want to be part of it. What you're doing here changes everything for these children, for the city, maybe for the whole country. Amara squeezed Marcus's hand. Her eyes shone with pride and love. See, she whispered. I told you they just needed to see the real you. 2 weeks later, Marcus and Amara's wedding day arrived. The ceremony was held in a beautiful garden that the city had recently built in one of the formerly red zone neighborhoods. It was Marcus's idea, to show how clean green spaces could transform a community. As Marcus stood waiting for Amara to walk down the aisle, he looked at the guests gathered to celebrate with them. So much had changed in such a short time. His parents sat in the front row, looking proud and happy. Next to them sat the Reynolds family, who now greeted Marcus's parents like old friends. Dr. Reynolds had visited the Community Innovation Center 3 more times since that day, bringing colleagues who were interested in supporting the program. Even Blake had changed. He had accepted Marcus's job offer and spent the past 2 weeks learning about Project Green Life. Today, he sat with some of the children from the center, helping them adjust their ties and dresses for the wedding. Mayor Wilson was there too, along with several city officials. They weren't just guests. They had become partners in Marcus's vision for the city. As the music started and everyone stood for the bride, Marcus thought about how differently this day might have gone if he had kept his work secret. He might have married Amara with tension between their families, with people still looking down on him. Amara appeared at the end of the aisle, beautiful in her white dress. Her father walked beside her, smiling at his daughter and at the man she had chosen. When they reached Marcus, Dr. Reynolds did something unexpected. Instead of the traditional kiss on his daughter's cheek, he hugged Marcus first. I'm proud to call you son, he said quietly. The ceremony was simple and beautiful. After they were pronounced husband and wife, Marcus and Amara walked back down the aisle together through a crowd of smiling faces. At the reception, held in a large tent nearby, Dr. Reynolds stood to make a toast. He looked around at the mixed group of guests, rich and poor, from different backgrounds and neighborhoods, all celebrating together. When Amara first told us about Marcus, Dr. Reynolds began, "I made the mistake that many of us make. I heard waste management and made assumptions. I pictured someone very different from the man standing here today." People nodded, understanding what he meant. "What I've learned from Marcus is that true value isn't in a job title or how much money someone makes. It's in what they contribute to the world." He raised his glass higher. "Today, I'm not just gaining a son-in-law. Our city is gaining a visionary leader. Our family is gaining a man of remarkable character. And my daughter is gaining a husband who sees beyond the surface to what really matters." Everyone applauded as Marcus and Amara shared a kiss. Later, during the dancing, Marcus's mother found a moment alone with her son. "I always knew you were special," she said, straightening his tie. "Even when you first started collecting trash, I knew you were going to do important things." "You never doubted me," Marcus said. "That made all the difference." "Your father and I are moving," she said suddenly. "Moving? Where?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Dr. Reynolds helped us find a nice apartment near the Innovation Center. I'm going to teach cooking classes there for the children. Your father is going to teach basic car repair." Marcus smiled, thinking about how his two worlds were coming together. His phone buzzed in his pocket. When he checked it, his smile grew even wider. "Good news?" his mother asked. "The best," Marcus replied. "The federal government just approved matching funds for the new underground waste system. They want to use it as a model for cities across the country." Across the room, Amara caught his eye and smiled, seeming to sense his happiness. She excused herself from her conversation and started walking toward him. One more surprise to share with her, Marcus thought, touching the small key in his pocket, the key to their new home, which he had bought in secret, in a neighborhood right between where they had both grown up. 1 year later, Marcus and Amara stood together on the roof of a tall building, looking out over the city. It was their first wedding anniversary, and Marcus had brought her here for a special reason. "Remember when we first met?" Marcus asked, holding her hand. Amara smiled. "At the hospital, you came in with a cut on your arm from work. I told you I was just a garbage collector," Marcus said. "And you said." "I said there's no such thing as just anything," Amara finished. "Everyone's job matters." Marcus nodded. "That's when I knew you were special." From their viewpoint, they could see the entire city spread out below them. The changes of the past year were visible even from this height. New green spaces dotted neighborhoods that had once been gray and dirty. Solar panels glinted on many rooftops. And in some areas, the first parts of Marcus's underground waste system were being built. "Look there," Marcus pointed to a neighborhood in the distance. "That's where our new house is. I have something to show you." They drove to the house Marcus had surprised Amara with after their wedding. It was a modest but beautiful home in a neighborhood that had once been part of the red zone but was now thriving. Community gardens grew on every block. Streets were clean and well kept. When they arrived, Amara gasped in surprise. A crowd of people stood in their front yard, both their families, children from the Innovation Center, Marcus's coworkers, and neighbors. "What's going on?" she asked. "It's not just our anniversary," Marcus explained, leading her toward the crowd. "Today is the official launch of the Amara Johnson Scholarship Fund." "What?" Amara looked confused. "What scholarship?" Dr. Reynolds stepped forward with a large check in his hands. "The hospital board, along with several other businesses, have created a scholarship fund in your name. It will send 5 students from the Innovation Center to college each year." Marcus squeezed his wife's hand as she wiped tears from her eyes. "But why in my name?" she asked. "Marcus is the one who did all this." "Because you believed in me first," Marcus said simply. and because you're going to run the program." Now Amara looked completely shocked. "What do you mean?" "I've been talking with the hospital," Marcus explained. "They've agreed to let you split your time between nursing and running the scholarship program. You'll help choose the students and mentor them through college." Amara hugged him tightly, too emotional to speak. Mayor Wilson, who was also present, stepped forward. "And I have another announcement. The City Council has voted to name the first underground waste management station after Marcus Johnson. Construction begins next month." Everyone applauded. Marcus's father wiped tears from his eyes. Later, as they all shared a celebration meal in the backyard, Blake approached Marcus with a young teenage boy. "Marcus, this is Jamal," Blake said. "He lives down the street and has some ideas about the waste system that I think you should hear." Marcus welcomed the boy and listened carefully as Jamal explained his thoughts on improving the system. "That's brilliant," Marcus said when the boy finished. "Would you like to come to my office next week and show these ideas to my team?" Jamal's face lit up. "Really? You mean it?" "Absolutely," Marcus nodded. "Great ideas can come from anyone, anywhere." As evening fell, Marcus and Amara sat together on their porch swing, watching their families and friends talk and laugh together. "Did you ever imagine this?" Amara asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "When you were riding on that garbage truck all those years ago?" Marcus thought for a moment. "I knew I wanted to make things better, but I never imagined how many people would join in once they understood what was possible." "And to think," Amara said with a small laugh, "all this started because people laughed at what you did for a living." Marcus smiled and looked out at the community he had helped transform. Sometimes people need to laugh at you before they can learn from you. The important thing is to keep doing what you believe in, no matter what they think. As the stars came out above them, Marcus and Amara sat quietly together, watching their two families, once so different and distant, now sharing stories, making plans, and building a future that neither of them could have imagined alone.